Wonder Woman issue 10, Legacy number 810. Tom King writing with Daniel Sampere on the art. So this kind of wraps up Wonder Woman's time being held captive. Although technically this issue she's still captive in a sense, but she's been moved to an island.
Yeah, it's a different kind of captivity.
We have the lighter, fun plot, which is the three Wonder Girls looking for the invisible jet, figuring out how to fly it, and just all of their banter on their way to basically just pick up Diana. Because we find out that Diana, I won't say intentionally got captured, but kind of went along with it because ultimately her goal was to save Cheetah, who had already been taken by the Sovereign. And the Sovereign, in his opening narration, kind of like indicates that, look, we weren't going to give up, but we accepted that we weren't going to be the ones to break her, and maybe the best thing was to put her with a different type of animal. And, you know, this is Wonder Woman waking up on a desert island, and the only other person there is Cheetah. And that kind of is our focus of the issue. So I loved pretty much all of this. The only thing I'll say is that I don't think Sampere, as much as Sampere's art is gorgeous, and it is, and it's gorgeous here, I don't like his design as Cheetah as much as some other designs of Cheetah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think it's fine. I think she still looks enough like
it's fine,
and that we recognize. So
yeah, no, I'm not saying it's bad. It's fine. Yeah. It's just not as good to my taste as like what like early Rebirth Cheetah looked like. Like I thought that was a way better, more fun looking Cheetah than this one. But like, yeah, it's fine. I'm just kind of saying it's the only kind of negative I would give it. But the stuff on the island, which is just Cheetah is effectively been starving because there's hardly anything to eat on this island, so she actually takes a big bite at Diana as the fighting starts. And yeah, the fighting goes back and forth, and it's mainly, you know, great art, but it's being carried by the narration, which is the Sovereign talking about basically, and this is the main point he kind of starts off with and comes back round to by the end, which is, okay, so many people consider Cheetah the nemesis or the counterpoint to Wonder Woman, but how does that make sense? Because when you look at the others, like, you know, Batman and Joker, you've got order and chaos. Superman and Lex, you've got, you know,
compassion and greed.
Yeah, that was the phrase you used. I was going to say hubris and whatever, but yeah, like they're clear opposites in many ways. But when you look at Wonder Woman and Cheetah, there's not that clear, easily, quickly definable thing. But by the end, the point kind of comes back round to, and it's almost like the Sovereign, in a weird way, makes an interesting point that's actually very progressive. He doesn't mean it to be progressive, but if you
he
actually
stumbles upon it by accident.
But if you actually read what he's saying saying that, oh, like these two women can't be just put into a simple box. It's a lot more nuanced than that. There's a lot more ebbs and flows to their conflict, and you know, again, to separate them from the other Trinity and their arch nemesis, is that by the end of this issue, Cheetah and Wonder Woman like are embracing each other, and Wonder Woman sort of revealing that she's there to save her and like take her home, and you know, we end up with like them sitting huddled next to a campfire. It's almost romantic at a certain point, and I'm like, I mean,
it's something that we've talked about with Wonder Woman before, that we are not sure who her true arch nemesis is, right? Because like sometimes it's Ares, right? For he's the god of war and he's kind of toxic masculinity, right? But then other times it's Cersei because, you know, the whole magic aspect, or it could be Veronica Cale because if Diana represents like goodwill and diplomacy, Veronica Cale is very much more like Lex, and it's selfishness and greed and all this other stuff. Or it could be Dr. Psycho, another toxically masculine guy that tries to get into people's heads. And so I like that what King does here with Barbara Ann is he's like, yeah, she was turned into a creature by the gods and she should forsake them. And here's Diana, who is trying to make things better as kind of this emissary from this perfect place. They don't really reflect one another. And I like what he says there towards the end is like kind of all the Amazons, they're not a mirror. They're like the reflection of the sun on the ocean. Right? It's just everything's a little bit different and they're kind of incomparable. And I was like, damn, Tom King, that is spot on for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, but to go back to the comparison to the other heroes and their arch nemesis, though, I would say that like there is no nemesis, right? Everyone you suggested there, I don't think any of them fit. I think Cheetah feels the one that's the closest, not because she's the opposite of Wonder Woman, or anything like that, but just because she's the one that feels the most impactful. Like, I think with you cannot deny that with Batman, Joker's the one that's the biggest villain. He's the one who stands out. He's the one that's the most exciting to see. Same with Superman and Lex. He's got the most impact in the villain's life for one reason or another. And I think that's somewhat true of Cheetah, even though the relationship with Cheetah is very, very different, and that's kind of what makes the relationship feel unique compared to the other heroes and their main villains. So I think that's interesting. I think it's also interesting that they address here in the narration that Barbara Ann's actually the third version of Cheetah. They acknowledge, no, there was the Priscilla version, who was a very different character. There was the one in between that I never remember because I don't think I've ever read a story with the middle one.
Me neither. I only know the Golden Age one because they've gone back and retconned that was Hippolyta, right? In JSA. She's the one that faced the Priscilla version. Yeah, the second one I always forget about too. I'm trying to pull up her name now.
Yeah, I always know that there was a third, but I've never really, been around her stories.
Deborah Domain, who was captured by desperate men and forced into the world of yellow fur and orange spots, which actually I know next to nothing about her.
Yeah.
So that's
good
of King to remind us that she existed.
It's just acknowledging the continuity in the history in some way, which is nice. But they sort of like they have this epic fight. Do Wonder Woman and Cheetah. There's a lot of going through trees and going through various bits of forest that ultimately ends with a big moment at the beach with Cheetah choking Wonder Woman, and Cheetah actually wins.
Yeah.
She actually is the one who's the victor, but then afterwards looks kind of like shocked or guilty that she might have won. Obviously, Wonder Woman's not actually dead. No. But Wonder Woman, as she's passing out, says, "No, I don't pity you. This is hope and love. This is me hoping for better for you," kind of thing. Which is fun. Also, I have to point out on the previous page, there is a panel where Diana looks like she's going for a cover, like for a 3 count.
She also nails Barbara Ann with a super kick on that page as well. So, not that page. It's on the after Cheetah jumps her and bites her, where Diana yells, "Damn you!" That is a full on super kick.
Okay, kinda. I mean, it's hitting her in the chest, but it looks of it though. It's not a.
Yeah, she ain't doing the sweet chin music, right? This is more of a desperation super kick.
Okay. But I just wanted to point out that panel though, because I'm like, why is she going for a 3 count? That's weird. There's no ref. Like, what's happening?
I mean, in theory, she's also working. It's not so much a pin as much as she's trying to hold her in place, right? Because they're also talking about how they.
But she's hooked the leg. She's hooked the leg though, Matt. Look at it.
Yeah, no, she has hooked the leg, but she's also hooked the head as well. So it's not just a typical. She's definitely going for an outside cradle. Dear. But yeah, it's to drive home the point that they fought because you see them at different times of the day over that panel, and right above her going for that pin, them fighting like getting ready to collide in front of the moon. I think that looks fantastic as well. But then when Barbara Ann has her, and she says that you never made me angry, only sad, and then she says no, not pity, but hope. And the expression on Barbara Ann's
Wonder Woman
face.
said that.
Wonder Woman.
You said that weirdly.
Sorry.
It wasn't Barbara Ann that said that.
But yeah, Wonder Woman says that it's not pity, it's hope. The look of surprise on Barbara Ann's face. It's like the first time that she's had clarity since being brought to this island, and that's kind of just the effect that Diana does have on her, right? Like during their whole history, Diana's never once given up on Barbara Ann.
Yeah, and notably as well, the Sovereign does mention that Barbara also couldn't be broken with all their techniques, that she's the only person other than Wonder Woman who's not fallen victim to the lasso of lies. It did not work on her, which shows that even though she's more of an anti-hero or outright villain, arguably, she does have the sort of the willpower, if you will, of equal to Diana. So that's an interesting thing to kind of play with as well. Also, that panel where she does go for the cover, like you said, there's a panel before that where they're jumping each other in front of the moon, which, it does obviously imply that they're fighting over the course of a day and a night or whatever. But I think what I like about it is that it's like they clash in mid-air in front of the moon and then land in daytime. It's almost like if you're watching a movie and you get like a really smart transition where it's like it just kind of like transitions into the next time, which I think is kind of cool. So yeah, obviously the art's gorgeous. There's a lot of funny art as well with the Wonder Girls where they're just sitting in midair. They do because they do this thing where they never do the the faint outline of the plane.
Right.
They never do the kind of like, oh, we can see through it kind of thing. They're just sitting there, and it does look kind of silly. And they play up this idea that Cassie's actually kind of scared because they're like 40,000 feet in the air.
And they're like, Cass, don't you fly? She's like, yeah, like 10 feet off the ground. This is 40,000 feet. It's different. I thought that was fun. She never looks down either. She's keeping her head. Like, the tension in her body is throughout that entire sequence. It's very funny.
Yeah. The body language is there the whole time. Also, earlier on, when they're on the runway trying to find it, and Cass just like bonks her head on the invisible jet. And then Yara starts making fun of her. Like all the back and forth there, the chemistry's pretty fun. All good stuff. But yeah, so the actual like fireplace, when Wonder Woman wakes up after losing the fight, she's sitting next to the fireplace, and Cheetah sits next to her. And yeah, like they kind of joke a little bit about her eating Wonder Woman. Like making her think of food and whatnot. But yeah, so. Yeah, Cheetah asks, why are you here? And she says, same reason you are, I was captured. And she's like, no, that's how you're here. That's not why you're here. And she's like, I'm the only one who knows you. But she's like, no, like, I'm here to, she basically implies that she's here to get her. And and she's like, basically, she breaks down. Wonder Woman actually breaks down because she has to be so strong. And like, the Sovereign and everything that's going on has turned the world against her. And she has to put up this strong front for everyone. She has to seem like she's always in control because she has to inspire everyone else to be the same. And Barbara says, not in front of me, don't, and hugs her. So we get this like touching, tender moment between them. Yeah.
That she's allowing her greatest enemy to be vulnerable in front of her. Yeah. That's sisterhood. Like whatever they are, hero, villain, friends, enemies, anti-hero, whatever. This moment right here definitely defined. This is another Wonder Woman Cheetah defining issue. Yeah. Just since we started the show, this is now 2 that I'm ultimately hyped on.
Yeah, and she so she figures out, oh, you let yourself get captured to come and free me. And Wonder Woman says, yeah, they understand what you might do to them. They knew you'd be a challenge. And Wonder Woman smiles as she says, I knew you'd be angry, which I thought was really good because it was like, oh, your anger's like something we can use right now. Yeah. If I keep you in check, it's actually something that can be a weapon against the villains. It can be a force for good.
And is it earlier or later where he says, I don't want to step on it, about that eventually it was Cheetah and Diana that put him in that prison, that she's talking to Libby.
I think it's later he says that.
Yeah. So I do like that too, that it shows that, they were onto something trying to split them up. And I was wondering when the recruitment stuff was happening, why they weren't going to Cheetah, right? So to find out that they had put Cheetah through the same kind of things, thinking that it would, all the depravity and everything that Diana went through, it would break her, but it didn't.
That's actually a good point. I think the implication probably is that they probably did try to recruit her with the lasso of lies when they got the rest of the revenge squad, or whatever you want to call them.
Right.
And it probably just didn't work, because I think we probably questioned, Cheetah's notable by her absence, but it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't just like she was forgotten about. This was a seeding for this, that they couldn't turn her. And as a result, we're here now. I love the art touch that when Cheetah is putting out her hand to help Wonder Woman up, and she's saying, hey, I spent much of my life hating you and the rest loving you. And Diana says, yeah, same with me. Do you know what that makes us? And Cheetah sighs and says, I do. But as their hands meet and she helps her up, the background goes away, and we instead just get a star, a Wonder Woman star, for lack of a better term. I think that's a really good moment, because again, it shows this friendship. Because basically, I mean, to be honest, I was like, yeah, it means you're married. That's what it sounds like to me. Sounds like you're hitched.
She has more of a marital relationship with Barbara Ann than she does with Steve. Like her and Steve, like they're a couple, but here, this feels like an actual emotional attachment. That's and it doesn't have to be marriage or whatever, but they feel like they're coupled for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, not in a romantic sense, but just in the sense that they know each other better than anyone else knows either of them, right? And even through all the fighting and all the pain and all the anger, it's still there, and they can still have these moments together. And it seems like they are united now, at least against this front that is now, you know. So after that, though, we have, again, we're back to the Wonder Girls, and Cass is leaning against the jet. Yara's still sitting in there, so she looks really funny, just kind of floating in midair. But yeah, it's all good fun.
They talk about how it's like, so do you think the government's gonna flip out on Sergeant Steele because he gave us access to the satellite network? And then they're like, yeah. Donna's like, yeah, they'll probably try him and hang him as a traitor. And it dawns on Cassie that's like, oh, we're gonna have to rescue him now too, aren't we? And it's just it's the funny stuff that, you know, as a hero, not letting the petty stuff. You know, you still have to do what's right.
Well, why are you stopping there?
Are.
Like she says she has that realization, and then Yara immediately goes, no. And then Donna goes, of course we do, it's our duty. That to me, that's what made it funny. It was that punchline. But yeah, honestly, my favorite part of this though is when Diana and Cheetah come just walking out the forest or whatever, and they come out of the beach. First of all, I like how easy this actually is. It's like, okay, the plan all along was just to have the Wonder Girls come and pick her up. Like once this part of the plan was reached, that's great. But my favorite part of this is actually Yara staring down Cheetah. I'm like, oh, this is an interesting pairing, because Yara's whole personality is that she, you know, she's tougher. She's trying to prove herself. She's got that kind of that attitude, and something about her getting in Cheetah's face, because, you know, this might be like someone to prove herself against. I thought was a nice little tease. Like, I don't know if we'll ever pay this off, but if potentially someday we get a Yara versus Cheetah story, I could be all for it. Like that one panel of Cheetah hissing a little bit and then Yara just going, it was good.
The hiss that got me. I was like, oh, okay. So the game recognizes game here.
Yeah. Just staring her down a little bit. So, yeah. So they fly off in the jet. Notably, this time we don't see an outline of the jet, but we do get the impression that they're being hiding inside the jet, because there's the panel of Wonder Woman being covered partially by the invisible jet. But like you said, it ends with that sort of final line about how, you know, they're not a reflection of each other. The Amazons are more like the light bouncing off the water, and we get the final panel it's basically the final shot of Jurassic Park with the birds flying over the ocean.
I thought so too. We just have a cheetah lady and an Amazon instead of a pelican and paleontologists, you know?
Yeah. So no, I like this. I also love the visual of the three Wonder Girls and Cheetah all squished in together in the back seat of the jet. That's quite funny to me. Where just the various facial expressions and how uncomfortable they all are is quite good. So, yeah.
Yeah, Yara looks like bored. Like she's like, oh, okay. There's no action to be had now. I guess I'll get back in the jet. But yeah, this was so good.
Yeah, this was great. I mean, obviously, I thought last issue was a little bit of a step down just because it felt like a bit more one note than a lot of the other issues have. But this was back on form. I think, you know, you read this arc as a set in the trade or whatever. I think it'll flow together great. That said, though, it has been a very good month-to-month read for the most part. There's only been one or two weaker issues. Most of them have been of a very, very high standard with excellent art. I know we've got a fill-in coming up with some tying into the event, but that better than getting that Gilliam March type of issue again, so I'm not going to complain about it. That
issue felt like a filler through and through, because even the subject matter of it didn't really get into the you know,
it just felt
the story
off.
That we've been going.
It felt off in so many ways. There is a backup as well, of course, which so this backup, right? It starts with it's just Damien and John arguing about various things, partly looking after Lizzie, but partly like, oh, how they each get their names and whatever else. But in the background the entire time, Lizzie is trying to fly a kite, and it keeps going, and she gets more frustrated, and the art's quite good here from Bella and Ortega, where she has Lizzie get annoyed and throw the kite in the ground, and it keeps going, and she's like, it's impossible, and she's crying. There's a funny joke at one point where Damien tries to tell Lizzie that just accept that everything's bad and like we're all doomed and nothing actually matters. And John's like, oh, great job. But there's a moment where they're trying to get the kite to fly. Lizzie starts crying her eyes out, and I think it's Damien just kind of suggests, hey, I kind of know a guy. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, oh my god, this is all building up to a Kite Man reference. It so is. It's so, and that's where I started to get a smile across my face. But it's the next couple of pages where she starts crying again because the kite still fails. And then John just sighs and goes, okay, we'll do it your way. And Damien just grins and says, hell yeah. And I'm like, oh my god, this is a Kite Man masturbating.
So it was
backup.
right. It was right in front of us the whole time with a kite, and it did not dawn on me until the hell yeah.
Oh no, I got it. It was the implication before that where it dawned on me we were building up to Kite Man. But yeah, like it's like I was like, oh my god, King,
so,
you bastard.
I also love that Damien tries to explain the myth of Sisyphus to a girl that's probably related to Sisyphus, right? Like, because he's telling her the Greek story and whatnot, and the lesson that Damien gets from it is don't try ever, because if everyone does not don't try, it's don't have expectations for things, because we have no expectations and everything is the same, which is not what you want to be telling a 4-year-old, because it's made clear that it's a 4-year-old. So I love all that, and then as they're trying to get the kite to fly, Damien's like, right now there's somewhere in the world crime is happening, and where am I? Where's justice? Where's vengeance? Where's Robin the Boy Wonder? And he's just muttering to himself. I thought that was so funny too.
Yeah, I mean, these backups have been mostly just good comedy, and I think there's some nice touches in the art. I think Bell and Ortega, well, a little cartoony for me sometimes. I do think it works really well with the young Lizzie with the big eyes, especially when she's yelling or crying. It really sort of works for the atmosphere and the mood. I especially like, the moment where they finally give in, or John finally gives in and says, all right, we'll go and get Kite Man. They really emphasize how loud the crying is by having the wahs as big letters in the background. It just completely like encompass the entire scene, as if to say that's all they can focus on now is the sound of her crying. Like everything else is gone. I thought that was good. That's just smart comic book art and plotting. So
very much.
Yeah. So yeah, the final page is just, Kite Man, after being, broken out by John, is now teaching Lizzie how to fly a kite, and it's all going well because he knows what he's doing. Yeah.
And I love that. And she goes, "Oh, I get it, Mr. Kite Man, like Sisyphus and shampoo." Right? Because it was of Sisyphus and Seamus, or Camus. So I just thought, the Wonder Robin stuff, it's for me, these work best when she's little like this, because you can play with that, and just how unfit John and Damien both are to babysit her. It feels very much like real family stuff.
Has she referred to herself as Wonder Robin before?
Yes, that was that was in the one where they wanted to take her out on patrol, and he gave her the Robin costume with the tutu.
Yeah, I remember the costume. I know it's not the first time we'd seen that, but when she yells out "Wonder Robin can fly," because she's on John's back, I didn't remember if we heard that name before.
So this one had me cackling even before the hell yeah, and then I got a big stupid smile on my face.
I like the idea that she wants to be a Robin when she's a kid, because kids inherently think that the older person who doesn't like them as much is the one that's cooler. And so it makes sense to me that she wants to take after Damien more than John, because John's actually nice to her. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, and there's also, to me, it also like what drew me to Batman originally was Robin, because he was a kid, and that's what made Dick Grayson one of my favorite characters. So I just feel like that's also here, is that she's identifying more as a Robin. It's not just a legacy thing, but it's because she's a kid and there's the bright colors and whatnot. But you're also onto something too with the, he's meaner to me, so I'll try to be like him to win him over, type thing. So, but I was not expecting Kite Man at the end of this issue. That I already got Cheetah and Wonder Woman, and so I was like, oh, this was the warm and fuzzies.
Yeah, very little to complain about in the issue. It's extremely good stuff. So, what are you giving Wonder Woman issue 10? Is that what we're on?
Yeah 10. I'm doing it. I'm giving issue 10 a 10.
I'm going to give it a 9. I think it's excellent. Yeah. I think you're a bit of a self-parody.
I am, but I also now, it won't just be Wonder Woman 8 from Rebirth. It'll now be the next volume of Wonder Woman 10. I'm just a sucker for Barbara Ann, and I thought here King, there's a chance that King was gonna fumble, but he didn't. He took the ball, ran all the way with it, and it's exactly what I like about her as a character. So, yeah, we're feasting with Tom King's Wonder Woman.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just thought it made a lot of good character analysis between Wonder Woman and Cheetah. I like the comedy of the subplot with the Wonder Girls. Like it was all very nicely balanced. Then the backup being fun on top of that, just as the cherry on top.